It's Wednesday, April 1st, 2020. Digital Trends Live is about to start. Here are some of the topics we're covering on today's episode of the show. Starting off with this, after months of debates, regulatory hurdles, and congressional inquiries, T-Mobile has officially merged with Sprint to become one of three major carriers in the U.S. We'll tell you what this means for 5G. And as the threat of COVID-19 has taken virtually all athletic events offline, the NBA has announced a players-only NBA 2K tournament to take place over the next month and broadcast on ESPN. Plus, with everyone quarantined at home, entertainment is at a premium. We'll be joined by Samantha Fishbein, the co-founder of Betches Media, to talk about the launch of Quarantainment. And while coronavirus has slowed things down here on Earth, what is it doing to our space industries? Well, Georgina Torbett will be covering some of the major developments, including the protocols astronauts undergo to protect themselves from coronavirus. All of that and more on today's episode of Digital Trends Live. And hello, everyone. This is Digital Trends Live. Thanks for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. Of course, we're broadcasting live here every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, bringing you trending tech headlines, news, interviews, discussions, and so much more. All while broadcasting live across a number of different platforms. We're on Periscope, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Dailymotion, Apple News, two different mobile apps, a smart television app, and digitaltrends.com. So you can follow on any of those platforms that you like, and of course, join in the conversations that we get to have. And thanks to everybody who's coming in here today. Of course, working from home, broadcasting from a corner of my living room. Now, today is April 1st. Normally, you'd see all kinds of tech companies doing April Fool's jokes, but that has pretty much been canceled this year. So don't expect a lot of that online, but we do have other news for you to cover, and actually some things that are kind of coming to fruition that we've been looking at for a long time, so I want to make sure that you're up to date with this. And the first one is this, and it is that T-Mobile has officially merged with Sprint. Now, that's something that's been in the works for a long time, and I'm going to tell you why that's important for you as well. This has been months and months, if not years, for Sprint and T-Mobile to merge, and one of the things with that is there were so many regulatory hurdles, so many issues that they had to go over in order to make that happen. There's a lot of concern that these two merging, then creating just three major carriers, would be a big issue for consumers, but they got it done. So it's a $26 billion merger. This does make it so that there are three major carriers now in the U.S. anyway. It's Verizon, AT&T, and what's being called the new T-Mobile. So new T-Mobile is what they're calling themselves based on the press release. A couple of major points of this. One, John Legere is out. He is not going to be he's not going to be the CEO anymore of T-Mobile. So that's a major issue right there, or not issue, but a major development, I would say. That guy, if nothing else, is quite a personality, and I think we've all become familiar with him over the years, so he is out. But what this does do, and what their goal is with this, is to pave the way for more 5G nationwide. And what they're saying they can do with this is better compete with Verizon and AT&T using Sprint's mid-level 5G options. So it gets very complicated. It's very technical when it comes down to it, and we've got details at digitaltrends.com. But essentially, it's going to allow for what they're calling a layer cake solution to 5G, which could make this happen a lot faster. So as we're seeing more companies put out 5G phones, granted some of them may be delayed because of supply issues, there are 5G phones out there. This could pave the way for more nationwide 5G coverage. At least that's what they are saying when it comes to this, and that's why it's a pretty major development. So we'll have to see what else comes of it. Again, this just happened this morning, so we'll find out more as we go along, but that is a big thing right there. So Sprint and T-Mobile merging for that. Continuing on with our coverage here at digitaltrends.com, let's go on to our next topic here, and this is, again, more developments that are happening. So we do have this. It has to do with Facebook, and we see this with a lot of tech companies launching different ways that you can interact, and of course, in this era of social distancing, where you can interact with other people and make sure that you can help out when needed, and that's what Facebook has launched with this. It's called Neighbor Help, so it's expanding on their community help feature. So it lets neighbors request and offer assistance during the COVID-19 pandemic. So that's what they're announcing during this. So essentially, this is something that they kind of already had in 2017. A lot of us may not have utilized it. It's to help each other out in an aftermath of a natural or man-made disaster. And now it's being expanded to help out with this. So what you can do is you can request or offer help to people in your neighborhood. And you can help with groceries, supplies, or general volunteer work. As we see a lot of people who are stuck at home, I mean, I think this is a good way, and there's certainly not the only ones doing this, but a good way to interact and provide help for those that need it. There's a lot of people that may not be able to go get the groceries or may need some volunteer help outside of the house, maintaining social distancing, but at the same time helping out people. So that's what they've launched with this. It's something that you can take a look at. You can opt into it. Again, it's Facebook's community help section. And so they've got it's via the COVID-19 Information Center. So when you go take a look at it there, this is part of what they're showcasing of what you can do. Nextdoor also has something like this. They've got a help map. And you see a lot of different companies just figuring out different ways that they can help out, especially, trying to interact with other people and bridge some of that distance that we have while maintaining the social distancing that's necessary. So you can take a look at that at digitaltrends.com. And again, we're just going through some of the big news stories here. These are the trending topics that I want to make sure you're up to date on. We've got some great interviews and other features that we're going to be talking about here on the show today. This next one, for some people, is going to be a bit sad. But for other people, it could be great. So Dark Sky is a really popular weather app. I use it myself. It's one where you can get hyper-local weather information. Now, there's a lot of weather apps that are out there, but this is one that really has developed, if not a cult following, more than that. But at least a cult following. And now the news that came out today from Dark Sky's own blog is that they have been acquired by Apple. So it is now going to be Dark Sky by Apple, and they are going to be the ones taking over this. And part of this announcement is that Android support is going away. So right now, you can still go buy the app that they said, buy the app in the iOS for the Apple Store or for an Android for $3.99, but it's going to lose all support for Android on July 1st. So July 1st, it's going to be useless if you have an Android phone. I know there's some big devotees to Dark Sky, Drew Prindle, our own Drew Prindle being one of them, who told me about this originally. But yeah, Apple's going to be taking it over completely. What they're going to be doing with it, hard to say. One thing of note, though, is that their API, kind of the back end that feeds weather information to a lot of different sites, is used by a lot of people, and how that's going to affect things on some of our favorite sites and apps, hard to say. We don't know exactly what the fallout's going to be, but that's some big trending news today. Certainly a lot of people talking about Dark Sky, so you can follow along with that at digitaltrends.com. All right, and one more piece of news here for you, and then we do have our product of the day, and we've got some interviews coming up. This has to do with entertainment. As we know, events are canceled. Gatherings, anything where people gather, and certainly athletics are something that have been vastly affected by that. We've talked here on the show before about how NASCAR is actually having iRacing. Well, the NBA has now announced that they've got an NBA 2K tournament, players only, that's going to be taking place on ESPN, and it's going to be taking place over a few weeks, actually. It's got 16 different players that are involved, and they're all ranked based upon what their rankings are in NBA 2K. So Kevin Durant being number one. You've also got other players in there. You got Andre Drummond. You got Whiteside who's in there. I mean, a lot of actually really good players that are taking place in this. This is going to be broadcast live. So April 3rd at 7 p.m. Pacific, that's when it launches. And then it goes from there, I believe it's 7 p.m. Eastern time, on Friday, April 3rd, 7 p.m. Eastern time. They've got a half-hour pre-show and then a tournament that's going to run until about 8:30, and then it'll replay. And each player is going to play a different player based upon the rankings, and then they'll go from there. So it's definitely an interesting way to incorporate sports and athletics. I think we're going to see this happen more and more as things get delayed and pushed out further. I mean, we'd be getting ready for the NBA playoffs pretty much right now, or at the very end of the NBA season. So this is kind of a cool thing that they're doing, but we'll be talking more about that, actually, I believe, tomorrow as well. So I just want to bring that to light. The winner of the event will also receive $100,000 to give to the charity of their choosing. So something you can read more about at digitaltrends.com.
Hey, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. It's now time for the product of the day.
All right, again, broadcasting live here from my house. It's the product of the day. Here's what we've got for you. This is actually really cool, and I kind of want to get it myself, but it is the Marshall Action 2 wireless Wi-Fi multi-room smart speaker. So that's a lot that I just said out there, but look at it. It looks like a Marshall amp. That's what's really awesome about it. But the thing is, the sound is really great, too. So while they don't go up to 11 on there, they still put out plenty of sound on that. It's can connect with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, RCA, or even a headphone input, so you can really connect with it in a number of different ways. So you can utilize it in a lot of ways with that. It also has Alexa, so you can utilize it with that. Sorry if I just turned on everybody's Alexas with that one. But it can also, it has something called Action 2 Voice, so it's got all kinds of things with it. And the bottom line is it just looks cool, especially as we're all working from home. why not have some cool things that will actually stand out in your house, maybe when other people are finally in, or maybe this would be a good thing to sit in the background of your Zoom meeting. Still a really cool speaker, so you can check that out right there. So again, it is the Marshall Action 2 wireless multi-room smart speaker. You can check that out right now. Click the link wherever you're seeing that and pick that up for our product of the day. All right, I know we need to get to a break because we have some great things to talk about here on the show. Coming up next, I'm excited to talk to Samantha Fishbein, who's the co-founder and chief creative officer of Betches, to talk about their new launch of Quarantainment. We all need entertainment, right? And this time, this is what we're going to be talking about with what they've got, a whole suite of things that they're launching. So that's coming up next. Stick around, back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. And hello, everyone. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. We broadcast live here every single weekday. And, of course, entertainment right now, as we're all working from home, we're all streaming from home, is at a premium. And we're going to talk to somebody who's certainly adept at providing entertainment, and that is Samantha Fishbein, who's the co-founder and chief creative officer of Betches, to talk about their new launch. Hello, Samantha. Thanks for joining us. I'm assuming that you're at your house right now. Is that true?
Yes, I am in my Manhattan apartment.
Well, and everybody's staying safe and everybody's at home, but entertainment is such a key thing that we need right now, and information. There's a lot of misinformation out there. And can you talk through what it is that you're launching here with Quarantainment?
Yeah, so right when we saw that that this was kind of going to dominate our lives for the next few weeks at least, and potentially months, we were really we wanted to kind of change our strategy. We know that our audience was looking for an escape, but they're also looking for information at this time, which is an interesting balance to strike. So we essentially jumped right on at the beginning of the pandemic and really pivoted our whole content strategy to something called Quarantainment, which is quarantine entertainment. And it has a lot of different elements to it. For example, we launched a daily podcast that we're calling the CoronaCast. We launched a video series with experts who are helping people with different areas of the pandemic, whether it's actual health issues to nutrition, to like how to handle your finances at this time. And we have a lot of exciting initiatives in store coming up for what could be quite a bit of a long quarantine for some of us.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's something I think for all of us, we're just adapting as we go because of the fact that it changes constantly. It used to be, we're going to be quarantined for a couple of weeks, but now it could be months, who knows? So this is a really interesting initiative that you have here, and it sounds like it's very robust, covering a lot of different aspects of things that people want to know about. And maybe we could go into those just a little bit more. Now, you mentioned some guides, financial guides. That's something I didn't even think about. We need financial guides for how to handle this and different ways to get information. What are some of those specific initiatives that you have?
Yeah, so I mean, we're at Betches. We're not health experts. We're not finance experts. So we've decided to tap people who are experts in those areas that we've worked with before. For example, for the finance video, we are working with Sally Krawcheck, the founder of Ellevest, to bring information and tips to our audience. Same goes for the nutrition piece. We have a nutritionist named Tracy Lockwood Beckerman, who is, I think her video is coming out today. And we're basically just informing people for the best advice, trying to equip people with the best advice that we can, while also entertaining them and keeping it in our always snarky and exciting, humorous voice, just so that it seems a little bit less daunting, which I think we already all feel that it is.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot to handle for everybody, and that's why things like this are so important. Going into the CoronaCast that you've got, that podcast, what are some of the things that you discuss on that, and how is it evolving, as everything changes so rapidly?
Yeah, so we have had a news and politics vertical for several years now called the Betches Sup, which was formerly a biweekly podcast where we run down the news on Mondays and Thursdays. We also have a daily email that goes out and is absolutely hilarious. So that is another way that we communicate with our audience. But we decided when this happened that the news was changing so quickly. I mean, if you remember, I think like March 12th, Tom Hanks and the NBA and all these things happened.
Right.
At once, and we saw that the news was changing way faster than a Monday and Thursday update podcast would be. So for that, we said, okay, this is something people want every day. Let's shorten it. It's normally an hour long. Let's make it 20 minutes, and let's do 10 minutes of the hard news, meaning like what are the updates in cases? Is testing ramping up? What people have been diagnosed who are public figures. So we do about 10 minutes of sort of like the basics, and then we do 10 minutes of a more in-depth discussion. So we'll go into something a little bit more complicated, like what's happening with the Defense Production Act, what's happening, should celebrities and influencers be jumping the line to get tests? And we'll go into like a little bit more of an analysis and the discussion in the second half of that podcast. And the people who are hosting this are funny individuals. So this isn't like a stuffy conversation. It's really digestible, really easy to understand, with a lot of references to pop culture and that sort of thing. So it's really tailored for our audience to be able to get the news in a way that isn't terribly stressful.
I love that mix of both of those, because they are both important, and that's kind of what we've been covering here, is just the hard news. You have to know that stuff, but it doesn't have to be. It depends on how you deliver it, I guess, and that sounds like that you're finding that balance in between those two with the show. Something else I wanted to ask about too is I want to make sure we get this in, the Good Influence Fund for Corona Relief. Can you tell us about what that is and what your initiative is there?
Yeah, so I mean, we were so inspired by all these companies that are changing their production to accommodate the pandemic. So whether that's someone like The Wing offering their space, or something like LVMH changing to manufacture hand sanitizer, we were sort of thinking, what is our version of that? And Betches doesn't have like an incredible amount of space that we can, lend out to a hospital. But we do know that the number one thing we have right now is reach and influence over our audience. And that they trust us. They trust us to know, like, if we said to donate to an organization, that it would be reputable and that their money would be going somewhere really helpful. So basically, and there's so many needs that need to be met right now. So basically, we curated 4 organizations that cover all different types of need. One is Be Strong. Another is the World Central Kitchen, which is Jose Andres' charity, as well as One Fair Wage, which helps restaurant and tip workers, and the Domestic Violence Hotline to help women and children who are potentially quarantined with an abuser and need help. So the reason we picked these is because they're proving to mobilize on the ground really effectively. So we felt that we could really vouch for them to our audience. And basically, the message of the campaign is to please donate to our fund. Our goal is to hit $100,000 in donations. That's our initial goal, at least. And even we know so many people are struggling financially right now. So even if you aren't able to donate, the message is that people can still use their influence, whether they're an influencer or a celebrity, or they are just someone who, is in a group chat with their friends, and that people can really use their influence for positive things. And the way we're tying this into our overall quarantinement strategy at this time is that next week on Tuesday, we're hosting an Instathon to raise money for the Good Influence Fund. So we think like an old school telethon where you have people like asking for donations and people calling in. But we're going to do this on Instagram, whether it's Instagram Live or dropping, interesting videos on our feed. And right now we're working on putting that together. So that is kind of our, gem of quarantainment that we're really excited for our audience to get to see and also hopefully to hit our donations goal.
Well, that's fantastic, that you're using that and clearly very, very busy despite being in quarantine, producing all of this and getting that out there. Those are some pretty incredible initiatives that you've got going, so definitely encourage everybody to support that. I do have one final question for you. You brought up the celebrity aspect, and we were on your website earlier today, and it sparked a huge debate in the Digital Trends Live crew about who should be cast in the Tiger King because of one of the articles that's on Betches.com.
Oh, yeah.
And so I have to ask you, who do you think should be the Tiger King?
Oh, wow. That's a really hard question. Maybe like Harrison Ford. I don't know why I thought of him.
Go with Harrison Ford for it?
Yeah.
I think Jack
probably do
Shepard
better
could
than
be
that.
one. Edward Norton.
Edward Norton, maybe.
It's definitely a big debate, but it sparks a lot of conversation here, just looking at that one. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for taking some time, to talk about this. Really, really impressed with everything that you're doing, and quarantinement's so important. Congratulations on the initiative, and best of success with that. Thanks for being here on Digital Trends Live.
Thank you so much. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you for having us. Thank you.
You too. All right, and that's the same for everybody out there, too. Stay safe, stay healthy. And thank you to everybody who's joining us here on Digital Trends Live. We appreciate it a lot. Coming up next, though, we've got more to talk about. We've got Georgina Torvet, who's going to join us to talk about the space industry. How has it been affected by what's going on with coronavirus, and what are some of the initiatives and things that are happening there? We're going to be covering that next. So stick around, back in a minute with more Digital Trends Live. Welcome back to Digital Trends Live. Thanks for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. Of course, we broadcast live here every weekday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. So hit the subscribe button on whatever platform you're watching on. That way you get the notifications. You can join the conversations we get to have. And certainly we obviously talk about how COVID-19 and the coronavirus is affecting a lot of different industries, but what about the space industry and space programs? How are they being impacted? We're going to discuss that now. We have joining us Georgina Torbet. And Georgina, thank you so much for joining us. I want to ask, where are you at right now, actually, in the world?
Hey, Greg. So I'm in Berlin, in Germany. So we have a fair bit of coronavirus over here as well, and everyone's on lockdown here.
So yeah, in lockdown, just like the rest of us are, and figuring it out as we go. But I want to say, I've been following along with your articles, which are great at digitaltrends.com. But I think it's interesting to see how this is affecting the space industry. I mean, we were at such a moment where there's so many different launches, so many plans going forward, and so much funding for it. What are some of the big developments that have happened, I guess, because of this or despite this right now?
Sure. So NASA particularly has been hit quite hard by coronavirus. They've had outbreaks either at or nearby to several of their facilities. So they've sent everyone who can be sent home to work remotely. And they've had to push back some of their projects. So the big one being they've suspended work on the Space Launch System and on the Orion spacecraft. And those are the two pieces of hardware that were going to be used in the Artemis mission to the moon. So the aim was to get someone on the moon by 2024. And while NASA haven't officially announced that that date is being pushed back, it's looking less likely that they'll be able to make that now.
Yes, that's definitely a far-reaching effect, because and that's something I think a lot of people are just trying to wrap their mind around is this is affecting things right now, but because of these delays, that can definitely change things down the line. And that's a huge initiative, that Artemis initiative that I know NASA has to get people to get there. And also they have their partnerships with SpaceX that was going to be going on according with that too. And I know that there's some delays or issues going on with that. Can you fill us in on what's happening with SpaceX's side of things?
Sure. So SpaceX, they lasted quite a while without being affected by coronavirus, but I think it must have been the last week or two, they had some cases, and so they're also changing their policies now. The big news for NASA and SpaceX, though, is the planned launch, the first manned launch of the Crew Dragon capsule. And so the idea is this is a system for ferrying astronauts between Earth and the International Space Station that SpaceX has taken on. And this project has been in the works for a long time, and it's a really big one because if the launch goes ahead, it will be the first time that American astronauts have been launched from American soil since the Space Shuttle program was shut down in 2011. So that's a really kind of big project, and that is currently still slated to go ahead for May this year. Some of these projects, in fact, delaying them costs so much money and causes so many problems that it's better, if at all possible, to make sure they go ahead. So that's why they are continuing to still plan to send this capsule to the ISS, even despite all of the issues that are going on in the world at the moment.
Wow, yeah, that's a bold move. It feels like to go forward with something like that, right now. And I get the delays. If you delay that, then it affects everything else. And that's kind of what you were talking about with the other one. One little delay can have a roller coaster effect on everything else behind it, or domino effect. Talking about that though, with these, if they do go forward with something like this, how do the astronauts themselves actually prepare and take precautions? Because I mean, that would be the worst thing ever, right? Get up there and somebody's 2 weeks later has it. What are they doing on that end?
So interesting. One of the reasons that the ISS ferrying can go ahead is that astronauts already have very strict quarantine procedures. So they already spend 2 weeks in quarantine isolation before going to space and after coming back. And so in some ways, the astronauts heading to the ISS are the only people in the world, it seems, whose plans for the next few months haven't really been impacted, because they were going to be in quarantine anyway. What they have done, though, is that they've tightened up that quarantine quite significantly. The astronauts have said that they used to be able to have family visit them and sometimes go out to local restaurants. And there were traditions like going and when they're launching from Russia, the astronauts like to go and sort of visit the gravesite of Yuri Gagarin and put a red carnation there. That's something that's been going on for years. But all of that has been cancelled this year. So they're in very strict quarantine where they can only see the absolutely limited minimum number of people that are needed to assess them. And so in some ways it's kind of business as usual because they would be in quarantine anyway, but this year it's just that much stricter, just to make sure that
just stricter protocols.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that is interesting on that end, just to see even that's changing, just what they're doing for it. Last couple of things. I know there's a couple of other just updates on the Mars initiatives and the telescope initiatives. What do we have with that?
Right. So another NASA project that's been delayed is the James Webb Space Telescope. That's the massive space telescope that's going to be the successor to Hubble. That has had work suspended on it also. Though, to be honest, that was almost certainly not going to make its launch date anyway. There was a report recently that there was an estimated 12% chance of it making its launch date before Corona. So it's not entirely surprising that one's been pushed back. But something which is going ahead is the launch of the Perseverance rover, which is part of the Mars 2020 project. And that's scheduled the launch window opens in July and runs till August. And NASA has held firm that they are planning to go ahead with that. Again, because that's one of those missions where you have to launch at just the right time to travel between Earth and Mars, and delaying that is hugely expensive and causes like a massive number of problems. So they're really focused on getting that launch to go ahead. And the Mars 2020 rover, now it's called the Perseverance rover, it's pretty much ready to go. They've been working on it for a long time, and it's in the sort of final tweaking stages and final testing. So that should be good to launch this summer, hopefully.
Well, that's cool. At least that's going ahead, just to see that happen. And then also, it's going to be interesting to see what happens in May with the SpaceX launch of actual astronauts going to the ISS. I would imagine right now that would be, it was going to be one of the most watched things anyway if it goes forward, let alone now with everybody at home. That'll be a pretty tremendous moment. Well, Georgina, I want to say thank you very much for joining us to talk about this. Thank you for keeping us up to date. All your articles are at digitaltrends.com. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Greg. You stay safe too. See you soon.
All right, that is Georgina Torbet. So again, take a look at all of her articles there at digitaltrends.com. Appreciate everybody joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. Hit subscribe. So coming up next, we're all at home, right? And we're all watching television. Well, why not get it dialed in the best way possible? So we've got something here from Caleb Dennison to talk about that. And then after that, we've got TBD with Adrian Warner, Jess Serbaugh, who's going to join us. What are we going to talk about? Well, it's TBD. So that's what we all have to wait to find out. So that's all coming up next. Stick around. Back here in a minute with more Digital Trends Live.
chances are your TV could look a lot better. If you, like most folks, bought a new TV, got everything hooked up to it, turned it on, and just started watching, then I'm afraid you skipped a highly beneficial step. The good news is it's never too late to adjust your TV's picture settings to get a much better experience. Hey everyone, I'm Caleb Dennison for Digital Trends, and before we launch into how to tweak your TV, I want to say that I disagree with the idea that there is only one right way to set up your TV's picture settings. I think the most important thing is to achieve a picture that works best for you. All that matters is that you love the way your TV's picture looks. I do think, though, that we can probably break TV watchers up into three main camps. There's the average TV watcher, for whom just a couple of key adjustments will do. Then there's the techie tweakers who like to dig in a little bit more and wring the most they can out of every pixel. And then there are the purists among us who want accuracy above all else. So no matter where you fall on this spectrum, I think I have you covered. Let's start with the basics. First, select an input to adjust. HDMI 1, 2, or any input that you have a Blu-ray player, cable box, or streaming box connected to. Now start playing a disc or select an HD channel or streaming show to watch as you make adjustments. And here's the important thing. Whatever you choose to watch, make sure it is an SDR, not HDR. So use a regular Blu-ray movie, stream a non-HDR YouTube or Netflix video, or pick an HD channel from your cable or satellite providers. This is not for testing, by the way. This is just to make sure we're in SDR mode and it gives us something to see in the background. So the key is to get familiar with your TV's menu system, and if you want some visual help, just check out one of my unboxing and basic setup videos for one of the TVs made by the same brand as the TV you own. That way you can see where you need to go to make adjustments. Next, let's talk about picture presets. I advise most folks to avoid picture modes like Vivid or Sports altogether. These tend to be blown out, overly bright, and nowhere close to accurate in color. They come off really flashy at first, but these modes tend to work best in showrooms where the brightest TV often gets chosen over others. They are not optimized for home use. I personally prefer starting with the movie, cinema, or calibrated mode. These are universally the most accurate out of the box, and they will get you a slightly darker picture with warmer colors. Also, if you're buying a 2020 model TV, you may find it has Filmmaker mode, and this is a new picture preset that's supported by Hollywood industry types and will be the most accurate out-of-the-box picture preset, at least for people who are watching in dark rooms. On top of that, some advanced TVs have day and night modes, and these are usually only for the cinema, movie, or calibrated presets. For instance, some Vizio TVs have a calibrated and calibrated dark mode. If you tend to watch TV in a dark room, then the darker mode might be the way to go. But if you watch with the lights on or sun pouring through the windows, or just prefer a brighter picture, definitely start with the standard calibrated mode. Now, if you pick one of these presets and it doesn't suit you right away, don't worry. We can make some adjustments to get it to your liking. But if you really want to start with another picture preset like standard or natural, you can do that too. You probably like that mode because it's brighter and the colors are cooler. And if that's how you roll, more power to you. No matter which mode you pick, you probably want to turn any kind of motion smoothing off. Motion smoothing helps with fast-moving sports, but it makes everything look, well, just weird. We call this soap opera effect, and you would be surprised how many people think it's a byproduct of HD or 4K resolution. It isn't. So on the Samsung TV, you want to find Auto Motion Plus and turn these off. Depending on the TV you have, it'll be called something else. If you have any trouble figuring out what your brand of TV calls its motion smoothing feature, check out our article about soap opera effect at digitaltrends.com, where we dig into that a little bit further. Now, some of you can just stop right there. If you pick a movie / cinema / calibrated / filmmaker mode and make sure motion smoothing is off, you're already in a really good place. If you want a brighter picture, bump up the backlight setting and maybe tinker carefully with the contrast. Not necessarily the brightness though. Juicing that up too high can wash out your picture. Now, if you want to keep tweaking, other things you might want to do is turn off all digital picture enhancements like digital clean view or MPEG noise reduction. These usually cause more harm than good, so just turn them off. Also, enhanced contrast is something you generally don't want to be turned on. This is another type of digital processing you don't benefit from. And look, if you aren't sure whether you should turn something off, experiment and see if it does something you like or dislike. And if you can't tell a difference, chances are you can just turn it off. Next, sharpness. Now, if this isn't the most misleading setting, I don't know what is. Oddly enough, turning sharpness up degrades the picture quality. It's a form of digital edge enhancement, and it can create white lines around objects. You don't necessarily have to turn it all the way down, but keep it on the extremely low side. More importantly, just never turn it up. Let's look at local dimming control. That's how your backlight system works. Again, different manufacturers call this by different names, but I have found that generally a low to medium setting works best. When you turn it to the max, you can get artifacts like halos and light bleed. This is just another example of how it doesn't pay to crank things to the max because you generally don't get the desired result. Fortunately, if you picked Movie Cinema Calibrated mode, this setting is probably correct out of the box. For other modes, you'll probably need to back it down. Next, let's talk about the brightness and contrast controls. These are a bit tricky in that you want to strike a balance between having deep dark blacks, but you don't want to obscure shadows. Here is where having a test disc or test pattern can help you out. Ideally, in SDR mode, you want to see all the bars in this grayscale pattern. If we adjust too far in either direction, we'll either turn the black bar gray or turn the gray bar black. What we want is a balance that shows us everything. And with that, we have successfully made adjustments for SDR picture quality for at least one input. And I say this because with some TVs, adjusting picture settings while tuned to HDMI 1, for example, doesn't mean the other HDMI ports will have the same settings. And it almost certainly means that your streaming apps don't have the same settings. So you may have to jot down your settings and make adjustments to the other HDMI ports, or if you're lucky, you have an apply to all inputs option like we do on this Samsung Q80. Even if you do have that option, you will probably want to start a show on Netflix or some other streaming app. Make sure it is not in HDR and copy your preferred settings over. Again, this is whether you're just going to pick your favorite picture mode or dig in and make other adjustments. Now, what about HDR? Well, put simply, HDR is far more complicated and deserves its own video. What I will say for now is that if you get your SDR settings done well, then the HDR mode your TV picks will probably suit you well too. If you are finding that isn't the case, well, you'll need to wait for the HDR picture settings video. Now, you may be wondering why I didn't go into adjusting white balance or color. And the reason why I'm not going there is the same reason why I don't publish detailed picture settings with my TV reviews. Every TV is different, so the picture settings to which I arrive if I do a professional calibration on this TV probably would not be the best options for your particular TV, even if it's the exact same make and model. See, when we get into deep corrections like that, a little bit of adjustment makes a big difference. And each adjustment has a sort of ripple effect, which throws other stuff out of whack, which then needs to be corrected. In short, if you want that level of calibration, I suggest hiring a calibrator who will take measurements, make adjustments, then measure again, and so on until your TV is optimized.
Well, hello there. This is Digital Trends Live. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. We appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button. Join the show. And it is Wednesday, which means it is time for TBD. No amount of social distancing will keep this from the airwaves. And this is our fun segment here every week. Now, what is it about? I don't know. but that's what our hosts are going to tell us about. So joining us, we have Adrienne Warner, who I believe Adrienne is joining me right here. Yes, Adrienne. Yes, there you are. Hello.
Hi, Greg.
And also we have Jess Surbach joining us. Hi, Adrienne and Jess. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you for having us. We miss you.
Thanks so much, Greg.
This is weird, but it's still happening. That's the important part. All right. Well, Adrienne, I want to ask you, so what is it that we're going to be talking about here today?
So, as you know, this segment brings to you a discussion about all things tech and pop culture. So this week, we're going to be talking about broadcast television, and the show title, what TBD stands for this week, is going to be Tremendous Broadcast Demand, because it is up. People have been tuning into major TV networks way more than they ever have in the past, partly and due to the coronavirus. So all major networks have seen a giant leap in viewership over their last year. And typically we see this kind of viewership in older audiences predominantly. So, but if past week, even broadcast viewership among 18 to 49-year-olds was up 5%. And just to give you kind of an idea of who's tuning in for the very first time, it's up 43% for age for 17. That's a huge, huge number. And yeah, just to give an example, a lot of these shows that have been really drawing huge ratings and huge audiences are a lot of big shows like American Idol. The Bachelor had a huge, huge finale this year. Even shows that have been on forever and ever and ever, like The Price is Right, have seen the biggest audiences in years. So people are at home, people are watching television, and they're not stopping.
Yeah, I mean, we all need entertainment right now. That's funny. The Price is Right is getting a huge boost in it right now. But talking about that, just some of the different, original content too that's coming out, and some of the different things that people are publishing on like social platforms, I think has been pretty fascinating to see. I don't know, Jess or Adrienne, do you have anything about that you wanted to let us know about?
Yeah, absolutely. So people have been getting really into putting out their own content because all of these networks, and all these productions are essentially getting sent home and halted in place. People are getting really creative. So Colbert kind of kicked all of this off by hosting The Late Show from his bathtub, you might remember, on March 17th. And recently, something that's been really trending is John Krasinski's new show, Some Good News. He hosted his first episode and brought Steve Carell on for an anniversary of The Office. So people have just been getting really, really creative with their own content and putting it out on all of their different social platforms. And it's been seeing huge, huge ratings.
They really have, Adrienne. Like you mentioned with Colbert, for example, launching it in his bathtub. The late night hosts are really kind of trying to find their own space within this whole thing. Like we have Conan, for example, who is broadcasting from his iPhone and bringing guests on via video chat. And then you also have the show hosts are using social platforms such as YouTube. For example, like Trevor Noah went from doing, The Daily Show to The Daily Social Distancing Show. And his actual like opening line is like, from Trevor's couch in New York City to your couch somewhere in the world. So they're really leaning in, basically. And, he's at his home desk, so it's super casual. He's grown a beard. He's still funny. It's great. There's definitely kind of a relatable piece in there. My actual favorite one, I believe, is Jimmy Fallon. He is doing the Tonight Show at Home edition. And the first episode it's just classic. He introduces his camera operator, who is his wife, and she's giggling behind the camera, and he's built out this whole space that he uses. His dog is there. His kid comes in crying, and he's trying to like intro the show, and she's like, "Daddy," and he's like, will you draw me a picture? And she's like, "No," and he's like, "Well, thanks." And I don't have kids personally, but I find it just relatable. And I think that's kind of part of the whole thing that they're going for. He pours a beer and toasts. Each episode is kind of dedicated to a specific charity. So there is that aspect too. So I do think it's interesting how the broadcasts are developing like that. We know specifically ourselves because we, as you all know, took our show completely remote. So our technical director, Mikey, actually took our entire control room and rebuilt it in his home studio. So it's really interesting. You can see there how how intricate it is to basically take apart a broadcast and, kind of piece it together. But I think we're doing all right, Greg. I think we're doing all right.
Yeah. I think we're doing all right too, and that's why I love all this stuff too, is just seeing how everybody else is doing their broadcasts and what everybody is doing. Something I've found fascinating where some of the stand-up comedians just doing live Instagram stories, because how do you do stand-up comedy without an audience and just testing out jokes that they have no idea if they're working or not, and trying that stuff out. And yeah, obviously, our setup's pretty amazing what we were able to do, what Mike's built with that studio and everybody working independently. It's pretty fun, just trying to see how we all adapt to this as we go through. I know there's another part of TBD though, and that is the crowdfunding section for Kickstop It. And I want to know, what do we have today? What is the weirdest thing that you found?
Yes, so our favorite thing that we found this week on Kickstop It is the Sleep Rock. This is actually something that has been getting a fair amount of attention. It's a rock that you sleep with. It warms up in your hand because it charges via USB-C. And it's supposed to help you sleep because in prehistoric times, people would sleep with a rock in their hand. Because presumably there were people trying, or animals or predators outside of their cave trying to attack them. So this warm rock apparently helps lull you to sleep. I can't get over it.
I think it's called a defensive stone, Adrian.
Defensive stone. How good is that?
A defensive stone. I mean, I want to know where the science is on that, where they studied like rocks. Actually, I mean, it's getting back very natural to have a rock to sleep with. Okay, I'm taking a look at it right now. So the Sleep Rock, and it's USB enabled.
You can
so
charge
it heats
it, right?
up, and you just hold on to a rigid
hold on
piece
to
of
it.
stone while you're going to sleep.
Yeah, it has an ergonomic grip, so it has little ridges for your fingers, and it's supposed to soothe you if you have trouble falling asleep. This is a natural sleep aid versus, potentially using sleep medicine or something like that. And it's,
I mean, if somebody has a partner, I don't think I'd want to sleep next to somebody with the Sleep Rock. If it's meant with like hand grip for defensive gestures. Like,
I even think that
something
myself.
I want to be around.
I think I would hit myself in my sleep with it,
All right. Well, as always, you two have to decide whether you want to kickstart it or kickstop it. So, Jess, let's ask you first. Do you want to kickstop it or kickstart it?
I'm super into holistic options for things such as this, but I gotta kickstop this. I mean, I'm just gonna pop down to the river and grab a stone and put it in the microwave or something. I think it's fine. There are other options. I'm good on this.
Right. Please live stream that if you start microwaving rocks. I do want to see that. All right, Adrian, what about you? Kickstop it or kickstart it?
This is too much of a liability, Greg. I would definitely hit myself or somebody else with this in my sleep. So I'm going to say kickstop it just for the well-being of others.
What about you, Greg?
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm going to have to agree. Kickstop it. I don't want that thing in my hands or near anybody else near me. All right, so we've got that. So it's deciding on that for the crowdfunding side. But I know to round out TBD every week, we have to have a little bit of Charlie Cam.
Oh yes. Hold on. We're gonna get him live here this week because we want to entertain the people. One moment.
Charlie. Live Charlie Cam. This is the dream, Greg.
I know. We never thought that this was possible.
We didn't.
This is the beauty of broadcasting remotely.
Here he comes.
People didn't think it was ever going to happen, and yet here it is right now. Charlie, live on Digital Trends Live.
There we go. There he is.
Giving the people what they want. I love it.
Exactly. That's it. I mean, where else do we go from there? All right. Well, Adrian, Jess, Charlie, thank you so much. All right. Again, another edition of TBD. And thank you. Miss both of you. And thank you to everybody who's joining us, too, for Digital Trends Live. We're live here every single weekday. So we're from a corner of my living room right now. You're watching from wherever you're watching. And thank you for doing that. Hit that subscribe button. Join the show. We're here every weekday, like I said, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. Let's take a look here. Coming up tomorrow, I know that we've got a lot of things that are going to be going on as usual. Okay. So, tomorrow on the show, talking about that NBA 2K tournament that is going to be going on where the players are playing against each other. We're going to have a rep from NBA 2K who's going to join the show to talk a little bit more about that. We'll have all the news. We've got Lisa Marie Cigar to talk about some gaming news, and that's just part of the show tomorrow. So each day it's different. Each day I appreciate each and every one of you for joining us here on whatever platform you're on. Again, share the show. Let other people know about it. Thanks for tuning in. Go to digitaltrends.com for all the news updates you need. And I'm Greg Nibbler for Digital Trends Live. I'll be right back here